What if I told you that the single white glove, the red leather jacket, the loafers that seemed to defy gravity during the moonwalk, none of it was an accident? Behind every unforgettable image of Michael Jackson, there was a small, secretive team of designers working in near total silence, building a visual language so powerful that decades later, a single silhouette is enough for the entire world to recognize him instantly. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden geniuses who turned a shy boy from Gary, Indiana, into the most visually iconic entertainer who ever lived. Stay until the end, because the story of the glove alone will change the way you watch every Michael Jackson performance you've ever seen. When people talk about Michael Jackson, they talk about the music first. Thriller, Billie Jean, bad. But ask anyone, anywhere in the world, to close their eyes and picture Michael Jackson, and they won't hear a song. They'll see an image, a sequined glove catching stage light, a red jacket with diagonal zippers, a fedora tilted just so, a pair of white socks flashing beneath cropped black trousers as he glides backward across a stage in a move that seemed to break the laws of physics. That visual identity didn't happen by luck. It was engineered. And the people who engineered it rarely got credit, rarely gave interviews, and in many cases worked with Michael for decades without the public ever learning their names. This is their story. And it's also the story of how image, choreography, and costume design became inseparable from the music itself, creating a template that pop stars are still copying today. 1. The glove that started a legend. Let's start with the most famous accessory in pop culture history, the single rhinestone glove. Most fans assume it was a fashion statement dreamed up purely for style. The truth is more interesting. Michael had a habit of covering his hands, partly for aesthetic reasons, and partly out of personal preference around comfort and cleanliness. What began as a simple accessory was transformed into an instrument of stagecraft by his costume designers, who realized something crucial. Under bright stage lighting, a single sparkling hand draws the eye like nothing else. Every movement Michael made, a point, a spin, a slow raise of the arm, was amplified by that glove. It wasn't just decoration, it was choreography made visible. Designers embedded thousands of hand-sewn crystals so that even a subtle wrist flick would catch the light and read all the way to the back row of a stadium. This is a technique borrowed from theatrical costume design, where a single reflective element is used to direct an audience's attention without a single word being spoken. In Michael's case, it became a signature so powerful that a silhouette of one gloved hand alone on a black background is instantly recognizable worldwide. Arguably the most efficient piece of personal branding in entertainment history. 2. The secret design team. They worked quietly, often traveling with the tour, hand-stitching costumes backstage minutes before showtime, adjusting fabric to match how Michael's body moved rather than how it looked standing still. This distinction is the real secret to his iconic look. Everything was designed for motion, not for photographs. A jacket that looked stiff on a hanger came alive the moment Michael spun, because the shoulders were cut to flare at a precise angle, and the sequins were placed to catch light specifically during a 180-degree turn. Pants were tailored slightly shorter than convention dictated, deliberately exposing white socks, because the designers understood that footwork was central to his performance. And if the audience couldn't see his ankles clearly, half the magic of moves like the moonwalk would be lost in shadow. This is design thinking most people never associate with pop stardom. It's closer to engineering than fashion. Solving a physical problem, how do you make a foot movement visible from 300 feet away? With a purely visual solution, shorten the trouser, brighten the sock. What's even more remarkable is how collaborative this process really was. Michael would often demonstrate a move first, sometimes on the spot backstage, and the design team would study the motion frame by frame before cutting a single piece of fabric. Jackets were built with hidden internal weights, so they would swing at exactly the right speed during a spin, neither too stiff nor too loose. Shoulder seams were shaped not for a flattering look in a still photograph, but for how they would catch stage lighting mid-rotation. Even the choice of fabric, often a lightweight wool blend or a structured synthetic, was selected based on how it would move under hot stage lights, without wilting after 2 hours of continuous performance. This meant that every outfit Michael wore on stage was essentially a piece of kinetic sculpture, built to be seen in motion rather than admired standing still. It's a philosophy most fashion houses still don't fully embrace today, and it's part of why his silhouette remains so distinct decades later. Very few designers were building for movement the way his team was. 3. The science behind the moonwalk shoes. Speaking of footwork, let's talk about the anti-gravity lean from the Smooth Criminal video and the specially designed shoes that made it possible. Many assume this was purely digital or wire trickery. In truth, Michael and his team, alongside a small group of engineers, patented actual footwear with a hidden heel slot that locked onto a peg rising from the stage floor, allowing him to lean forward at an impossible angle while appearing to defy balance entirely. That patent is a masterclass in blending choreography, illusion, and industrial design. It shows that the genius behind Michael's iconic look wasn't limited to costume designers. It extended to shoemakers, engineers, and stage technicians who treated every visual trick as a solvable design problem. The goal was never simply to look good. The goal was to create a visual moment so impossible looking that audiences would rewind, replay, and try to explain it to friends who hadn't seen it. The 1980s equivalent of something going viral. What most people don't realize is how much trial and error went into that single trick. Early prototypes of the shoe mechanism were tested repeatedly backstage, away from cameras, because if the hidden slot didn't lock perfectly with the stage peg, the entire illusion and Michael's safety could be compromised. The engineers had to account for stage temperature, the wear on shoe soles after repeated use, and even the slight differences in stage flooring from venue to venue. It's the kind of behind-the-scenes problem-solving that never makes it into a highlight reel. Yet without it, one of the most replayed moments in music video history simply wouldn't exist. 4. Hair, makeup, and the evolution of an image. No conversation about Michael's iconic look is complete without addressing how his hair and overall styling evolved across every era, from the curly afro of the Jackson 5 years to the sleek, structured look of the bad and dangerous eras. His longtime hairstylists and makeup artists worked hand in hand with the costume team to make sure every visual element reinforced the same message: precision, control, and an almost otherworldly polish. This mattered because television and music videos were becoming the dominant way audiences experienced music. A blurry, inconsistent look on screen doesn't translate. Michael's team understood early that lighting for video is different from lighting for a live stage, and they adjusted fabric choices, makeup tones, and hair texture accordingly for each medium. This attention to platform-specific detail is something modern influencers and content creators are only now rediscovering as essential to building a consistent, recognizable personal brand across multiple formats. 5. Why this matters today. Here's why this story is more relevant now than ever. In the era of TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, personal branding has become the currency of fame. Every successful public figure today, whether a musician, an athlete, or a content creator, is essentially doing what Michael Jackson's hidden design team did decades ago, engineering a consistent, instantly recognizable visual identity that works across every platform and every camera angle. Michael's team proved that iconic imagery isn't about expensive clothes or celebrity stylists attaching famous names to an outfit. It's about solving specific problems. How do we make a hand movement visible from the back row? How do we make footwork readable on television? How do we make an entire silhouette recognizable even in silhouette alone, with no color and no face visible? These are the exact same questions modern brand designers, choreographers, and video editors are solving today, whether they realize it or not. Section 6. The people history forgot. Despite creating some of the most recognizable imagery of the 20th century, most of these designers, engineers, and stylists remain unknown to the general public. They rarely spoke to press, rarely took credit publicly, and in many cases signed agreements to protect the secrecy of their techniques, especially the mechanics behind stage illusions like the anti-gravity lean. This anonymity was, in many ways, intentional. Michael wanted the magic to remain magic. He wanted audiences to believe that his talent alone created these impossible moments, rather than a carefully engineered collaboration between designer, engineer, and performer. In hindsight, though, giving credit to this hidden creative team doesn't diminish Michael's genius. It actually reveals a deeper truth. The greatest performers in history rarely succeed alone. They surround themselves with specialists who share their obsession with detail, and together they create something no single person could have built alone. So the next time you watch archival footage of Michael Jackson, that spin, that lean, that flash of white sock under stage lights, remember that you're not just watching one man's talent, you're watching the product of an entire hidden team. Designers who understood motion better than most engineers, technicians who solved impossible physical problems, and stylists who understood exactly how light, fabric, and shadow combined to create a legend. Michael Jackson didn't just have a look, and perhaps that's the biggest lesson hidden inside this story. True iconic status is rarely built by one person alone. It's built by a circle of quiet, obsessive specialists who care as much about a single stitch or a single sequin as the star does about the final performance. And together, they create something that outlives them all. If this deep dive into the hidden creative genius behind Michael Jackson's image opened your eyes, make sure to subscribe, because next week we're uncovering the untold story of the choreographers who shaped his most legendary dance routines, the ones you've seen 1,000 times but never truly understood. Drop a comment below telling us which Michael Jackson look is your favorite, and we'll see you in the next video.